There we are, we're live. Welcome to the Cosmos Mega Stream. It's been a big week. So first off, GM, BM, and LM to all cosmonauts. And also welcome Nico, who's going to be my co-host for today. CMO of the Interchain Foundation. What's up, Nico? How are you doing?
Doing wonderful. Bullish Atom kind of Friday. We're doing pretty good. It was an amazing week. A lot of things going on without a doubt. We have a lot of the folks that you've seen around the week joining us today as well to do a sort of post-game match analysis.
Yeah, and yesterday, I think a lot of people have already been part of the town hall, which was like an introduction of this whole acquisition announcement. We also covered it here on the CryptoC2 YouTube channel over the recent kind of days and weeks. But now I think it's time to go a little bit deeper into what this all means, what the future for Cosmos is going to be like. And of course, we're going to have the new leadership in the house. We have Barry and Mac from Skip Protocol, which is now renaming to Interchain Inc. after the acquisition by the Interchain Foundation. Mac and Barry, how are you guys doing?
Doing well. I'll be here.
Super good.
Yeah. Mac, I don't know if it's just on mine, but I think your connection is not really stable. Maybe you can check on that. In the meantime, Barry, I guess it's been a very, very big week for you. I also saw your kind of post that you did. It's been an emotional week for you, I guess, as well. So how do you feel? What's kind of your reaction to all the feedback? I think there's a lot of positivity on Twitter these days. So how's your reaction to everything that's been going on this week?
Obviously, we're thrilled. Like Mag and I and the whole Skip team have believers in the Cosmos mission of helping folks build truly sovereign, truly decentralized, and really interoperable applications that don't have any kind of limits, right? The kind of limits that you get placed on in other ecosystems for years. And it's been the thing that has been just most energizing for me in crypto. And we're so excited that we have this opportunity to continue to support and help that vision with the resources of the ICF. So it's been like one of the most exciting weeks of my life, for sure.
Yeah, I bet. Now we also have Mark back. Now your picture looks good. How are you doing, sir? Everything good?
Yeah, sorry about that. Things are going well. Super excited, obviously, about all the different changes. Very excited and very grateful to be able to work more directly for Cosmos and work with the ICF to make that happen. And yeah, very excited to get into some of the plans that we have.
Yeah, and I also saw you had a little bit of a how do you say that, like a baptism of fire yesterday with the slot community. And I think this is also maybe something we can talk about, generally speaking, about kind of the Cosmos community culture. We've always been preaching, whether at Cosmos or here on the channel, it's a very bottom-up kind of ecosystem. The community is very, very involved in many, many things and very vocal about it as well. So yeah, we can maybe get to talk about this later. But yeah, next up we have Josh, president at the Interchain Foundation. What's up, sir? How are you?
I'm good. I'm great. As you said, it's a big week for everyone here at Interchain. Yeah, I'm doing really, really well.
Nice. And we do have over 200 people watching live right now. So please, everybody, shill that link everywhere. We're streaming here on YouTube and also on Twitter at the same time. Shill that to everybody, because I think it is a very, very important event that happened this week, and we got to talk about it. And of course, we can't miss the man himself, Bucky, Cosmos co-founder. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. Yeah, I'm pumped. It's like you're saying, an emotional week, but very exciting. I mean, finally moving on from the ICF and bringing in new leadership and passing the torch and just seeing the response is really really exciting. Been trying to make something like this happen for a long time, and we finally did it. We got the Skip guys in here, and I think everyone knows about the massive amount of potential that this ecosystem has, and how strong the values are, and how great the builders are, and we just needed to get our crap together, and I think we've done it. So And then these guys are already in the trenches. They're already putting out fires. They're already doing the Lord's work here. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, they're already fixing relationships. So I think that's good. But yeah, maybe we can start off, because I think, and this has probably been something a lot of people have talked about also on Twitter. I talked about a lot here on this channel as well. It's like Cosmos, Interchain, Atom, sovereignty, interoperability, right? All these kind of buzzwords and all these this Cosmos terminology that people are probably conflicting sometimes. A lot of people think Atom equals Cosmos, which is kind of the left curve take on Cosmos, and maybe it turns out to be the right curve take after all. So can you maybe, I don't know who wants to take this first, but maybe kind of define Interchain, Cosmos, Atom, and what is now changing with these terms and this dynamic between the three after this acquisition announcement? I don't know, Barry or Bucky, if you guys want to take that.
Yeah, I can start, and I can tell you how we think about it. I mean, the mission, right, at a high level is we want to bring about like the dawn of a new internet, right? A more fair, a more open, a more transparent, a more user-owned internet. And the reason we want to do it here in Cosmos is that the Cosmos architecture is the right way to do it. Like, it is the only way that is going to be scalable, and it's the only way where we're going to have true programmability and control for developers, for communities, and for end users. And time is kind of running out to do this, right? And like, Bitcoin just hit 100K. Every fintech in the world is looking at coming on chain. You have now things like Blue Sky that have millions and millions of users and are going to be wanting to come on chain. And like, the infrastructure and the ecosystems that exist out there today are not ready for that. Like, they are not scalable enough. The UX is still shit. The problems are enormous. Like, the industry is not really ready to grow up. But Cosmos and the Cosmos technology and architecture is incredibly well positioned to do that if we can move fast enough. And if, as Ethan said, we can really get our shit together. Like, we can be the place where that next generation of the internet gets built, which I think was the original goal, right? And in terms of how we think about what the definition of Cosmos is, like, and maybe how that's changing, I think in the past there was this view that like the Cosmos hub was just this chain, and it didn't really, maybe it had to do things, maybe it didn't, but it didn't have necessarily a relationship with the vast majority of chains building on the Cosmos stack, IBC, Cosmos SDK, that kind of thing. And now the way we're thinking about it is actually that the Cosmos hub is a critical part of the developer platform that adds up to the Cosmos ecosystem. And when we think about, okay, exactly what is that? That's, chains building with the Cosmos SDK that have IBC connections, whether they're L1s or rollups or L2s, it doesn't matter to us. Like, this is the platform that we think is going to become the architecture for the next wave of the internet. And like, that's kind of how we're defining Cosmos now. Hopefully that helps answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. And like, historically, there's been a lot of confusion every so. I think even, if you dig through old tweets, you find people talking about, oh, we should just abandon the Cosmos brand and rename it all Interchain. And it's even the ICF, over the years has been sort of ambiguous about its relationship with the hub. Are we in? Are we out? What's happening? And so I think that confusion has just been really challenging for folks. And for a long time, what I've been trying to do is realign them and assert that, like, no, the hub really should be part of the stack, like but we didn't really have the product focus. We didn't have the like unity across the ecosystem, the marketing, the BD in sort of a unified way. And so you'd try to do something for the hub, from an external organization, perspective, and then you find that anything you try to do, there's just like conflict, there's fragmentation, there's like other entities you're constantly having to coordinate with that aren't necessarily aligned on a common vision. And and that was something that Informal this past year, trying to work on the hub, really experienced in a difficult way. You had the AA DAO, you had the ICF, you had Informal, you have different organizations all trying to do their own thing with a different perspective on the branding and the naming and what should happen. Is just really challenging. And so we came away from that really feeling like, okay, this this is only going to work. We can only do this if we have unification, right? If we have unified leadership for the hub, and ideally also, pull together the stack and get like real serious support from the ICF. The ICF needs to lean into the hub as well, and the Skip team saw that. Ultimately, the new board at the ICF saw that as well, and we made this happen. So now we're here, we're unified. We can lean in hard into Cosmos, the hub. I mean, you're already seeing the sentiment. You're seeing people talk about, oh, I've been bearish the Cosmos brand, and Barachain will soon be talking about being a Cosmos chain, whether Smokey likes it or not.
I mean, seeing Smokey and Zonny from Initia bull posting Atom and Cosmos was not on my bingo card for this year. So
yeah.
And it's one of those situations where the sum matters more than the individual components. The technical components alone have to shine, but if you're an outsider from the world, anybody trying to adopt, anybody to join the ecosystem, Cosmos and the sum of it all is way more important and easier to navigate. I wouldn't have fingers in my hands to count the times where I've had to try to explain how to chart Cosmos to everybody and how to join and how to adopt. And it's like, hey, for the SDK, you get support here. For a Comet, you go there. There's a DAO in that corner. The foundation is here doing this thing, but it's just Cosmos. And as a whole, that's the best way to explain the broader vision. And then you dive into the little bits that make it all a big thing, right?
Yeah, and I think unification is also probably the theme of this show today. But before we talk about that and like unifying everything kind of within Cosmos, but also like Bucky, like we were saying, the Barachains, even the Nilians, the Initias of the world, to be bragging about being Cosmos or part of Cosmos. But Josh, a question for you: what's now, after this acquisition, going to be the role of the ICF as an organization?
That's a great question. I've been thinking about how the ICF has been somewhat distant from the community and lots of other folks for a while, and I think they're going to see us be a lot more receptive and open to community feedback, but we're still going to operate somewhat independently of them too. There's this balance that I think we have to strike in terms of the ability to make sometimes unpopular decisions and do so somewhat independently and maybe to short-term anger on the community side, but for long-term growth. I frankly I think that what that means for us as a foundation is that we're going to keep moving forward with investments and grants and separate work as a Swiss foundation, but predominantly the product strategy and growth work is still going to be segmented over to Interchain Inc, led by Mag and Barry. And as I said, I think we're going to be we have been receptive to the community. This acquisition, I think, wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for a lot of community sentiment actually that brought it to the table. And I'm really grateful for that. But I do think that we need to have a degree of independence from it as well, and that's going to be the path that we're going to try and chart going forward.
That independence as well gives a lot of room to rebuild those relationships with the ecosystem.
That's right.
And Mag and Barry, I'll ask towards you, how do you see that reforming of the relationships of Cosmos with ecosystems that have built but have distanced maybe themselves from Cosmos? What's the focus in Cosmos driving value to these projects rather than isolating or alienating them?
Yeah, I can give that a shot. So I think we said this previously, but the way that we want to be interacting with people is from a value first perspective, right? So what does not work generally when you're trying to ally with an ecosystem or when you're trying to work with anyone, in my experience, is to say, hey, you're this whether you like it or not, right? You're Cosmos. I see it in your GitHub. I need you to acknowledge this. The reality is these are teams that are trying to do the best for themselves, and they will align and work with teams that benefit them the most, right? We want to be that team. Right? We want Cosmos to be the preferred partner for every application builder. not just because it's exciting to be associated with us and the vision is strong, but also because the products that we have are just vastly superior to anything on the market. And they know that they can go further with their project if they work with us. And we are so close, right? So close. Like the Cosmos SDK and Tendermint are already the best in class products in their categories. The next step is really to add on all of these go-to-market like functions that we built at Skip already, Skip Go, which productionalizes IBC, and in the future, other products that just help people come to market. And then we're unstoppable, right? Like we're already winning. We just need to have the home run. And that's what we're here to do. And that's what we're excited to try to bring.
That's the leadership that we always wanted, to be honest. Like just listening to you and like Barry and this new fresh wind. And I also saw like Bora announcing that she's joining and some others, Rob as well. I think you're assembling a killer team that's not only focused on like technical things, but also when it comes to kind of growth and business development, and also just literally being an entry point, right? Because that's also something I've struggled with over the years, right? People come to me and they're like, I mean, whether it's at an event or just through kind of networking, kind of the Cosmos YouTuber, and like, okay, who do I talk to when I want to get into Cosmos? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know where I should send you, but now I know because you guys are there on the kind of receiving end and also really building the rails, which is what Cosmos always needed. But yeah, I don't know, Barry, if you wanted to add something on that, what Max said.
I think Mag put it really well. I mean, the way we kind of think about it is we already have best in class technology, and now we need to put the pieces of that best in class technology together along with the Cosmos Hub to build a best in class ecosystem that's fun for people to build in, that's easy for people to build in, and that, like I said, can handle the scale of this next wave of adoption of crypto and blockchains that we think we're going to see, that like the entire industry is not ready for and that we're not ready for yet. So there's a ton of work left to do. Like we're best in class, but the bar is low, and like the time is kind of running out. So I think we're incredibly well positioned to be where that growth happens. The other thing that I would just add is we also had that experience, coming into Cosmos where we were like, all right, we talked to like 15 different teams. Sam Hart, who was at the Interchain Foundation at the time, actually was really important for us figuring out how to navigate it. He was like, okay, informal is over here and binary is over here, and like here's all the history of all the things that have gone on and like why you need to know all these individual people, and if you need help with Comet, this is where you go. And like now that can be dramatically simplified, and like the entry point can just be like DM Barry or Mag and they will point you in the right direction. Like it's much easier for everyone and hopefully much more visible for everyone. So we're excited about that.
And we built all this incredible tech, but there was always this like massive overhead of this coordination cost and this routing cost that that Barry was just hinting at. And so now to have that tech aligned in one place with the product, with the growth, with the BD, with the strategy, with the funding, like all in one shop, it just like eliminates all that coordination overhead, and suddenly we can just like accelerate. And so that's Cosmos is
now
going to explode.
Imagine like until now, in terms of the organic adoption that Cosmos achieved without having a proper kind of onboarding team, reaching that level, I think it's like 120 plus chains, tens of billions of dollars in market cap, billions of dollars in value transferred over IBC every month. We had Terra, it didn't end well, but that was a huge thing back then, right? Torchain, Dydx also migrating from Ethereum over, like that all happening mostly organically and just like without extra push. Now imagine what Cosmos where Cosmos can be, with this organization in place, and if everything plays out nice. And one thing that I covered here as well a lot was kind of Solana's resurrection miracle, which was a term that Lily Liu from the Solana Foundation coined that term, and I really love that. And I think, to me personally, I'm in Cosmos only since 4 years. I guess most of you have been around for much longer. But to me, it feels like Cosmos has really bottomed out in terms of sentiment a couple of months ago. And now we're really seeing this huge comeback, right? Comeback in vibes, in getting more devs onboarded, more applications, more liquidity, which I know is also a big thing that you guys are focusing on. So I don't know if you have thoughts on kind of Solana's path, and if there's anything that you also get inspired by for Cosmos kind of journey and trajectory.
I could even kick it off real quick. I know Mag as well will have a lot to say about this, but Solana's work is as well something that rippled a lot in Web3 because of the realization that it doesn't end with the technology, and it shouldn't end with the technology, but you actually have to put the work into having people succeed with the technology, and then the end users are also your responsibility as a tech creator. You can set standards, but the standards have to be great to build with, and they have to generate great results. And that means way more than just technology. It means supporting the builders by creating great developer experiences, giving them opportunities to build and making it easier to do so. Because everything, and if you look at just like the different data about like why do builders choose any chain over other, it's just opportunity and ease of access. If there's opportunity in any ecosystem, and opportunity comes in many shapes, right? Like access to tooling, capital, how easy it is to build and deploy, then innovation happens fast. But again, it doesn't end with the tech, it doesn't end with innovation. You then need distribution, users, people to get this too. And that requires helping product, helping marketing, helping go to market. And that machine that they built on around probably 2 years ago, it's just that. It's like an end-to-end machine that supports builder from the conception of the core tech to the end user using it and helping users navigate it, find those opportunities. It's a very, very generous cycle overall that makes it easier for all actors. And we're looking at that very closely, without a doubt.
Yeah, just to add maybe a couple things. You know, I can tell you what Solana didn't do when they were going through their like absolute bottom, right? They did not rename to Fast Chain. And similarly, like, and if they did, I think that would have been a massive beta move, right? And like, that's sort of why I'm such, you know, I've really revised my own take, and I'm extremely excited about just Cosmos and the brand and the vision and the history, you know, the ugly and the good. Like, this is ours, right? And we can sort of embrace it and build it into something a lot bigger. So that's one thing that I think is really important, right? Is like, don't lose your way, don't lose your uniqueness, don't lose sort of like who you are. And then I think the second thing, and sort of to Nico's point, is I think the other story about Solana is like, it was really a story of community, right? I remember in the depths of the Solana, you know, despair, a lot of people were saying, well, actually, if you look closer, there's this like core group of developers that are really active, and they're all going to Breakpoint. They're all like still sort of sticking together. They're still building good things. And there was still this group of people that really cared. And that's why I think, you know, with Barry and I sort of coming in and trying to help out, one of the things that I'm paying a lot of attention to is the community, right? And of course, community isn't just everyone saying, okay, great, like we're on the same page. They're individuals, right? They have opinions, they have fears, right? They have misgivings. And I think to the extent possible, one of the first things we want to do is come in and show that, one, we're moral people, right? We're hearing them, we listen to them. This whole thing, right? Like us talking here and this acquisition was the first, I think, like real step in that direction. And then two, that we value their input on the future of Cosmos, like they're a part of the journey. And, you know, that I think is something that is really important to do, because ultimately this is all just about the community. Like that is what we're, you know, that is who we work for. So that's I think really one of the big focuses that we can improve upon.
And I think that's always been true of like the Cosmos vision and values. And I think what attracted so many people here was that, you know, it was never about the founders. It was never just about one chain. It was never about one organization. It was always like something we gave away that was like, you know, Cosmos is yours. It's about sovereignty. You can come here and do whatever and build whatever. And I think in the fragmentation and in the leadership challenges and in all that stuff, the like core organizations kind of lost the ability to do that, right? Even if they wanted to be working with the community, they didn't always have the ability to actually make the change that they wanted, right? And so you have, with all that that coordination overhead is just so hard to make progress. And so now there's an opportunity to like return to those values with that unification and really empower the community again and move forward.
And I think there's always going to be this paradox that's more challenging for us than someone like Solana, because the downstream of the Cosmos values is this fragmentation is a direct result of it, because people care about their sovereignty and they care about being able to do things on their own and with their own criteria and their own, their own development environment and whatever, their own VM on whatever chain they want to build, right? That's all downstream of this sort of shared value of vehement like self-sovereignty. And so that to me has been the huge strength of this ecosystem at large, and why you see 100+ chains that have been built downstream of the technology. And now I think what we need to wrangle is exactly this, like how do you get all of those people back in the fold while retaining that, that self-sovereignty and maintaining the value system. And that to me, like, because Skip and the Interchain Foundation are so aligned on those values, and that's well known across the ecosystem, there is this opportunity to somehow square this circle and unify everyone in the same direction while maintaining that focus on foundational self-sovereignty. And it's a challenge for sure. And I don't think it's directly applicable to literally any other ecosystem. But I think it's one that I'm truly optimistic and enthusiastic that we can face now.
I do think some of the rhetoric around like, oh, our problems are because of the values is just like cope for stated things. I mean, obviously it's true that like sovereignty is critical, and that causes everyone to want their own chain and so on, and that definitely creates more tensions and challenges. But we've tried to align like, oh, our ecosystem is so decentralized, like from a org structure because it's sovereign, and it's like, that wasn't right, that was just
for sure. Yeah. This is us fixing that
because we stumbled into that kind of thing. But so like this reconsolidation doesn't change any of that, right? Like the sovereignty,
that's fair.
Is still kind of core, and even having even like prioritizing the Cosmos Hub as a blockchain to serve the others. I think that's something that people have always like sort of wrestled with. Oh, you're throwing out sovereignty because now you're prioritizing that. Like, no. It's still core. We still want every community to be able to be sovereign over their application, their infrastructure. Like that's necessary for this new internet, but you also need coordination, right? Just because you're sovereign and interoperable doesn't mean you can like throw out the coordination baby with the bathwater, right? And so, and the Cosmos Hub can play that role of being that coordinator, that facilitator, that integrator, and we just need like the unified execution capacity to be able to do that we finally we now have.
Yeah, one last point on that is I do think it's true that like Cosmos is trying to solve a harder problem than other ecosystems. Like every other kind of blockchain ecosystem project in history has basically said, okay, build on our chain and accrue value to our token, and you'll get some of your token, or your token will have exposure to our token. And like we know that if you look forward a year or 2 years, always that fails. Like Ethereum, they did that excellently, and then the chain got way too expensive and people had to move off of it, and now they're wrestling with these questions that Cosmos has been wrestling with for years. And Solana, you're starting to have network extensions, people want to customize things. Like we know what direction it's headed in. Like you just have to look forward a year or 2 years, and like they're going to be grappling with the same questions. Cosmos is just jumping straight to the end state. We're saying, okay, the most successful applications, the most ambitious builders want sovereignty, they want control of their economics, and they want the ability to program their application end to end. Like we know that's what teams in crypto want. We know that's what banks and fintechs and other folks outside of crypto are going to want when they come in. And the question that Cosmos asks is, okay, how can we actually support that in a scalable way that creates value and doesn't infringe on that sovereignty? That's just a harder question. And so I think it's very natural that we've had a harder time answering that question. But we have a 4 or 5 year head start on everyone else who's now like going like, oh my God, like what's happening in Ethereum?
Yeah, but I used to say that our organizational like challenges were like the universe's way of giving all the other ecosystems a chance to catch up. which was also dope, like totally, but they caught up. Okay. And so now it's time to like get back to it. So yeah.
But yeah, Bucky, you mentioned the Cosmos Hub and how it potentially can kind of elevate its role in the ecosystem. I know this is also kind of part of your mission to also make the hub a true hub again. Can you maybe just talk about, in this new organization, Interchain Inc., how is that structurally working? Is there like a Cosmos Hub specific team? And what exactly, I don't know if you already have a clear roadmap. I think in Q1 you kind of want to also get community feedback and conversations with the community, but what are your views on where the Cosmos Hub is going from here?
Yeah, obviously there's going to be a whole dedicated space to the Cosmos Hub coming up next week, which we'll also get into this on. But just at a high level, so Interchain Inc. Has a bunch of different teams, some of which are carryovers from Skip and some of which are new teams, right? So one of the teams that we have in place is for Skip Go, or IBC.fun, as a lot of people still use. That is going to continue. And in fact, that is going to expand. And one of the very nice things is, because the IBC team is going to be moving into Interchain Inc., IBC and Skip Go can now collaborate much more deeply, which means we can further and improve the service by sort of like having a collaborative and combined, go-to-market for the entire IBC as a product, not just technology. The other teams are going to include the Stack team, so Cosmos SDK and Comet. So one of the big themes, as we've been saying, is unification. We are unifying all of the core development of all the different pieces of software into Interchain Inc. And we believe that having IBC, Comet, Cosmos SDK all working in unison is going to have a much faster rate of development than it's previously been, when it's been all spread out with different teams. And then, of course, last remaining team, or I'm probably missing one or two, is the Hub team, which I'm going to be personally leading, and includes, I'm sure you might have seen this on X, but it includes Gnome, who's going to be one of the product managers, or the product manager right now. And then also includes some members of the Skip engineering team, and that team is going to grow. Our primary purpose right now, just as we're getting our feet wet, is just to maintain the chain and take an honest look at where it is and see sort of what pieces we want to keep and what pieces we want to remove, right? So for example, there's been a lot of conversation about the LSM module. This is something that we are almost definitely going to remove from the Cosmos Hub. There's been a lot of conversation about ICS and PSS. Sometimes, or like in some ways it's been very successful, in some ways it's been less successful. We definitely want to make modifications, but that's something that I think has a real potential product vision. And then there's a bunch of other bits and ends, some of which were written by Skip previously, like the fee market. Those are things that are either great or things that we want to make improvements to. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit for the Cosmos Hub that we can just immediately get into while we're just getting started, right? We can speed up block times on the Cosmos Hub massively. This is like, not so immediate why it would help in the beginning, but if we truly wanted to make the hub a hub, it needs to be fast, very fast, right? If you want liquidity moving through it as like a central point, if you want it to be a bridge, it needs to be quick so that the users of it as a hub can have like a fast response time for their applications. We're obviously going to get into more of this on future spaces, and we're going to be publishing some stuff about this, but those are some of like the early wins that we can sort of achieve. I think,
can you also
just quickly, I just want to clarify that all of this is going to have to go through the community, right? So these are ideas that we have. We're going to bring them up to the community. I'm already in discussion with a bunch of community members. And then hopefully, we're on the same page.
Yeah. One additional thing there that I just want to mention with respect to the Cosmos Hub and the stack overall is that a huge part of what needs to happen is we just need to increase our iteration speed. We just need to be able to move faster. We need to experiment more. We need to be building more. Right now, there's, each of the individual stewards of the stack has done an excellent job on their own component of the stack, but all together, the different moving pieces and including the hub, like we take over a year to get anything from a conversation to, you know, a real protocol or a real change. And we're going to be trying to bring that down a ton, stack wide and on the hub, to make sure that we can move really, really quickly from, hey, you know, IBC Eureka can now connect to Ethereum mainnet, to, oh, wow, it can connect to all of the EVMs, and it just works, right? And it works through the hub, and it works through other chains in Cosmos, and be able to do that in weeks or months instead of right now years, which is what it's been taking, right? And that's a huge part of what we're trying to do, is just speed up.
Can you maybe also talk a little bit about Hydro, because that's been kind of newer products for basically for Atom liquidity. There were 2 rounds. I think the second one that filled up within like a few minutes. So Bucky, your team at Informal originally built that out. Now I think also Informal's mandate is coming to an end towards the end of this year. So can you maybe talk about it? And I don't know, Mag or Barry, if you want to share your thoughts on Hydro and how it fits into what you have in mind.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of our mandate this year, I mean, the proposal we put up was focused on R&D, but early on, you know, we kind of realized, look, we need to take a more product oriented approach here, and so both with Forge and Hydro as sort of, you know, put like the ICS kind of, you know, old infrastructure world behind, and like really try to focus on more accessible, low friction projects, and Hydro is sort of, you know, our leading attempt at that, at really leaning into like the liquidity problems that are facing app chains. And, you know, there were all these proposals to get Atom from the community pool to deploy into DeFi across Cosmos. Those proposals are usually very well supported, but there's been no oversight. They're all kind of ad hoc. It's not clear what the return is to Atom holders and to the hub in general. And so we built a sort of proper decentralized auction platform for that can function as a decentralized market maker, and that can arguably compete with centralized market makers to provide liquidity to DeFi projects. And so we've seen, you know, massive excitement and support for the Hydro product. So the team there's been no shortage of challenges. The whole LSM thing, you know, was a big challenge, wanting to go with, you know, Stride initially so we could ship faster, and then having to deal with all that, you know, so just like constant stream of issues trying to coordinate to ship things for the hub. But we got it out there, and the feedback's been amazing. So that team is like really iterating rapidly and shipping, and there's a lot still coming down the pipe. They're building out an ecosystem around it. And so there's a proposal up now on the forum. Now, of course, Informal's funding is coming to an end. There is Informal's been under budget, so there's some excess funding. So the proposal, you know, is asking for some of that to be rolled forward. Informal is going to be spinning out Hydro as its own entity that can just like focus on just Hydro and really, you know, be entirely focused on that, separate from, you know, Informal, the company doing its other stuff. And so the proposal is to be able to fund basically that entity to continue the product development work, but to also chart a path for that thing to be more self-sustainable, right? So there's details in there about this Hydro treasury. The yields will start going into that treasury, and then ideally the development team will be able to fund itself out of that treasury, so it won't have to constantly go back to the hub community pool, right? So try to set this up as an example of a possible, you know, fully Atom aligned, fully Cosmos hub aligned, you know, DeFi application that can be self-sustainable over the long term and can have its own, you know, can build an ecosystem up around it. So we've been chatting with the Skip team quite a bit about it. They're supportive of anything that brings, you know, more liquidity and addresses these kinds of like user challenges. But yeah, be happy to hear from them on you know, their thoughts on Hydro and what's next.
Yeah, happy to give a quick. I also left my comments in the Cosmos sub forum, by the way. But I think my general attitude towards things on the hub is we need to experiment, right? We need to try new things. I think, you know, those things could be related to new kinds of applications, new ways of distributing Atom liquidity, new ways of, you know, approaching security, new ways of pretty much everything. And as long as we can try them in a safe way, and, you know, if we have early signs that indicate that they're working, we shouldn't shut them down, right? We're definitely, you know, they're like we like to say, Skip, like, you know, we're at day one again, right? We're here to sort of like re-experiment with a bunch of new things that, you know, I think we've lost a little bit. I mean, Cosmos is an older ecosystem, but hopefully with us here, you know, we were able to sort of try a bunch of things in fast iteration. And so Hydro, in my opinion, is one of the things that, you know, we tried and definitely is showing signs of adoption. And so to the extent possible, I would love to support it however possible.
I just maybe, and then maybe Barry, you can take that, or Mark, but because my thought is also around kind of the coordination layer around it, right? Because I think one big thing, especially for the hub, that's always been lacking is proper coordination, messaging, and just streamlining things, right? And historically, we had different organizations, some of them community pool funded, some of them just like companies that contribute stuff. But it's kind of always been a little bit isolated and not in full sync. So how, I think one challenge for Hydro, if they were to go that route, which I think it's already in the forum, so that's definitely coming, like is how do you ensure that kind of coordination?
I can speak to this a little bit. I think we you know we hear you that, you know, coordination needs to improve. I think we think about it maybe a little bit differently, which is rather than trying to make sure that all of the people who are building on the Cosmos Hub can coordinate, how can we make it much easier for more teams and new teams to build on the Cosmos Hub with less permission and with less friction and less time? Like, oftentimes when people talk about coordination problems, like the first thing you should ask is, well, do we really need all these different people to coordinate? Like, let's look at Solana, or let's look at Ethereum. Like, yes, you need some coordination at the top level around a technical roadmap and a product roadmap, and you need, you know, coordination between that roadmap and, you know, a marketing engine that's going to go out and find builders and bring them into the ecosystem. But, you know, there's 10, 20, 30, 50 different DEXs in the Ethereum ecosystem. There's a ton of different DEX aggregators. There's a bunch of different bridges. They're not all coordinating with one another, but it's, you know, they become these, like, you know, experimentation engines where you see people evolve and grow and really push forward the technology because they don't have to coordinate, because building is permissionless, right? And so the way we think about it, I think, is less around making coordination easier and more around how do we make building easier and get to so many people building on the hub, you know, that we actually don't need to worry about making all of them coordinate.
We need coordination at the core, right? Like Barry's saying, the core team shouldn't be fragmented and have to work across organizations to get just like core functions of growth and BD and marketing aligned with technology. And that's what Informal struggled with so much this year, being a technology shop and having all this external coordination, right? But part of the nice thing about Hydro was we could own it end to end in one place, and it could be an Atom aligned project that's not, you know, it's not like the one and only thing the hub's going to do. It's one example of what you can build, you know, if you're excited enough about the hub and building things, right? And so with a core team in play, and, you know, this is what Informal was looking for in the summer. Like, look, there needs to be a unified team for the hub. I mean, we can make Hydro successful, but like the hub has so much more to do than just Hydro, right? There's a lot of challenges ahead to make this like a leading L1 basically, and we really need a unified team there. And so, you know, having Hydro be its own entity, you know, is totally fine in that regard, because there should be many entities building on top of the hub, building Atom aligned and hub aligned projects supported by and enabled by a vertically integrated core team, right? Which is what we have now with Interchain.
Yeah, if I had to take a moment to just make a dad joke, as is my way, I would say, what, you know, to Barry's point, what we need is coordination, not coordination. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you, Josh.
no problem. No, I'm just trying to add value.
Click remove from stage. No, and the same concept applies both ways to the hub and the stack, because incentives have to be well aligned for even open source contributions. Like, as Barry said, driving an update for IBC is not just an update for IBC. It means an update for IBC into the SDK and into all other places it is integrated, right? So from the open source contributor perspective, imagine all the barriers of friction you get to even make one contribution to the stack of the hub, as it has to go downstream in adoption through all of its components. So having things one place, clear ownership, and all incentives aligned towards that will also actually mean easier and faster contribution from all places. And a lot of the questions that you'll been answering and the key points you've been hitting, mention a couple words: innovation, product, frictionless building. That's a lot of what we call, just product mindset as well. And sometimes people try to differentiate the product mindset from innovation, but Barry and Meg, you come from like a very well-versed product school. Can you give a little bit of an explanation of how still product thinking helps prioritize tech and building impactful tech? You want to drive it?
Yeah, I can give I guess like a high level. So, I mean, when deciding to build products, you need a purpose, right? You have to be wanting to accomplish something. And so the first thing that you need to decide is, well, what do I want to accomplish, right? Like, what do we want to use our limited resources to attain? In this case, and as we spelled out, I think in the first blog post, there's a couple things we want to accomplish at a high level. The first is to 100x liquidity in the Cosmos ecosystem. Huge goal, massive amount of liquidity, right? Multiple billions and billions of dollars of liquidity. And the second thing is to make Cosmos and the Cosmos ecosystem the best application development platform in crypto, and ideally in the future beyond crypto as well. And so if you're thinking about those from first principles, that helps you organize your product thinking about, well, should we prioritize this feature or can this wait, right? Is this urgent to accomplishing those goals, or is it something that may help on a 5-year time frame? Is this revolutionary, or is this iterative on top of what we already have? So, in our case, one of the biggest product decisions was to focus on the Cosmos Hub, right? That was a major product reorientation for leadership in Cosmos to basically say, well, this chain that we have, right, or this chain that's in our ecosystem, this could be a vessel for bringing in a ton of new liquidity into Cosmos and spreading it around to the other chains, and also be a great vessel for bringing in new builders. Because I think, as we all know, when people think Cosmos, they think Cosmos Hub, right? And they think Atom as a token. And it's important for us to make sure that the Cosmos Hub is a good torchbearer for the rest of the ecosystem. And it's very hard to make the rest of the ecosystem so successful and look great when the Cosmos Hub doesn't really do anything and it doesn't have a great brand, right? And doesn't have great product on it. So that's one of the first sort of big product directions that we took, which was out of that goal of making Cosmos Hub the best development platform and one of the highest liquidity ecosystems. Of course, there's many other sort of more downstream decisions that come from that. But in general, I think that's the way that we think through things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the thing I'd just add to that is maybe when we looked at Cosmos, I think the core problem that and you look at it compared to other ecosystems, right? What you see in other ecosystems is there is a really central flywheel around adoption of the protocol, usage of the blockchain, and growth of the teams that are building on it, right? So in Solana, it's somebody deploys an application on Solana that attracts some users, the SOL price goes up, that attracts more builders, that attracts more users, and you have this flywheel. And the Cosmos Hub, in relationship to the Cosmos ecosystem, doesn't have anything like that right now. It like literally lacks the core mechanism that drives growth for all other ecosystems. And we need to build that in a way that is really broad, that actually supports, not just, ICS chains, but supports and benefits everyone building with the Cosmos SDK, everyone connected to IBC, and the Cosmos Hub can be a central part of that. And when we have that, when the hub is doing things like helping to provide liquidity or connectivity to other ecosystems or whatever it might be, then the growth of the other chains in the ecosystem is going to lead to growth of the hub. And then that's going to lead to excitement around the ecosystem because the hub is going to have a clear part in the ecosystem. That's going to lead back to growth in the ecosystem. And like, we're going to get that flywheel going. And that's really, really important. And it's the thing that we're missing. And when you get that flywheel going, it can speed up, and it can speed up naturally. And that's how you have these like Solana like returns from, bad lows very, very quickly, because that accelerates, right? It's not just like a linear thing.
If I double down on that question very specifically on choices of product and priorities, one of the things that we've seen a lot and we have been sharing as well is IBC and IBC Eureka. Could you share a little bit of why that is also a high priority coming next year?
Yeah. So first of all, I think one important thing to say is, we didn't come up with IBC Eureka or push it as a priority. The IBC team that was operating, before we arrived, came up with it. Aditya, who's the sort of lead protocol designer there, has been working on IBC for years. Super brilliant guy, super brilliant team, and basically realized like, oh shit, IBC is way, way too hard to implement. Because it includes all of these different, handshakes and complicated setup procedures and clients and channels and connections. It's like bananas complicated. And we've never really been able to implement it anywhere except for in the Cosmos SDK, because the Cosmos SDK is that good. But other VMs, like, you just can't do it. Like, people have tried for years and they can't do it. You need teams who are like insanely cracked, like the Union team, to even have a go at it. And so Aditya, having spent all this time working on IBC, basically said like, all right, I'm going to strip out the stuff that makes it hard to implement, but doesn't affect functionality. Like, he's an engineer, but has a brilliant product decision. It's like, we're still going to have all of the features that people care about, which is ACKs and timeouts and really expressive interop. But we're going to make it so you can actually implement it in the EVM or the SVM or in the Move VM in 4 weeks instead of in like 2 years. And that's coming to fruition first for the EVM in Q1 of next year. And then we're going to be expanding outwards from there. And I think when you think about the Cosmos ecosystem as a developer platform, the reason that matters so much is that if I'm building a protocol in Cosmos, I want the Cosmos value proposition to be true, which is I can build it here and I can connect it to everywhere. I can connect to users and applications and liquidity everywhere, not just other places inside the ecosystem. Like, we want global interop. We don't want local interop. And so we want people to be able to do that over the IBC, like 8 developer APIs. You should be able to like talk to Osmosis and talk to protocols on Optimism just as easily, and without having to think about what are the other bridges I have to use,
We have a few minutes left, but before I let you all go, I want to talk a little bit about also communication. So we talked a lot about coordination, but also communication, especially with the actively involved Cosmos community. Like we said in the intro, Mark, I already saw you were deep in the sloth trenches. So moving forward from here, Interchain Inc., when it comes to kind of community relations, what's your approach there? And yeah, I don't know if you have kind of a clear strategy or maybe a message also just to the community.
Sure. I mean, I talk to the community a lot. As you said, I'm in the trenches. But I think the way that I approach it is a community problem, right? An issue in the community is as important to me as a technical problem, right? Because ultimately, we're not building this in a vacuum, right? People are using this stuff. They're using our products. They're putting their money into it. If they have issues in the ecosystem that we are able to help with, or we're able to provide some color on, I'm very happy if I'm allowed to sort of share and try to solve that and help where possible. So I think my general message to the community is now is a time for unification, right? Bring up your problems, bring up your misgivings. Let me know what they are. I'm happy to like talk about each one, and I'm happy to see if there's something that I can do. The sloth thing was a good example. Obviously, there was some miscommunication and some anger regarding sort of the sloth community. And I did what I could. right? And I think hopefully that was the right resolution there. But I think also what it's an example of is we can solve all of these, dramatic, like very overblown issues by just having a conversation, right? By being adults, by like talking to each other and saying, hey, I didn't like what you did. And, we're all on the same page here. We all want the same thing. Like, how can we resolve this amicably and move forward, right? I think if we have enough of those repetitions and everybody realizes that actually we all want the same thing. We all want Cosmos to be great. We all want the sovereign vision and internet of blockchains to really exist and really become the new internet. Once we like internalize that, all of these small things, they can just go away, right? And we can talk through them, we can resolve them, and we can all be focused on the mission. So to the extent possible, I view these as, things that are high priority to me, at least personally, and I think to Interchain Inc. more generally. And we're very happy to be involved in the community. We want to listen.
Yeah, I'd maybe just add one thing on that, which is very super obviously at this point, like in crypto, an ecosystem is not just like what is the technology. It's what is the technology and what are the vibes. And for a lot of people, smart people who we talk to over the past 2 years, talked to a lot of folks trying to convince different teams to build Cosmos chains, sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully. The number one reason that people decide not to has actually nothing to do with liquidity. It has nothing to do with users. It has nothing to do with the technology. Obviously, technology is incredible. It is actually, the vibes are weird. Like, people look at Cosmos and they say, oh my God, there's all these people fighting and screaming at each other and getting in each other's faces. And like, my message to everyone is just try to not do that. Like, stop focusing on the negative and start focusing on what we can accomplish together and focus on how we can grow the pie together, and not how we can take what's here and divide it up and try to kick people out and like do this. Like, you can't decide who is in a decentralized community. That's the point of a decentralized community. Like, if you could, what would we all be doing here? Like, we'd be wasting our time. And so like, I think Mag and I will always be down, especially Mag, to try to like, sit down with people and sort these kinds of things out. But my message to people is also like, just try to move past the things you've been hanging on for years. Try to move past the trauma, try to move past that. And so we can go into this new chapter with open eyes and open arms and try to go bring about this new wave of the internet together. And so that's my call to action to the community.
Yeah, and I just to add to that very briefly, I think that everyone who has ever worked at the ICF, in my experience being here for a year, has always operated with good faith and good intentions for the broader ecosystem. But it was exactly, I think, that past trauma and the minutia and people just not wanting to let go that has caused a lot of the strife in the past, that I've witnessed. And I think that part of that is also the fact that the ICF, didn't have strategic clarity, and there was ambiguity around what we were even going to focus on. And what I'm, again, very enthusiastic and optimistic about is we're not in that place anymore. We're not in that place anymore with Skip on board with this clarified vision of where we're going next year. And the fact that we're not there means that it's an open invitation for everyone to sort of join us and leave the past behind and look forward to this future where we can resolve all these things amicably, like adults, and move forward for the greater benefit of the ecosystem.
Yeah, the trauma has been real for a lot of people, and it constantly shows up, and some of us have been trying to heal it or address it in our own way for years now, and it's the iterative thing wasn't working, and I kind of realized that fully like this summer, and set out to do something more revolutionary here, and went and recruited Skip, and the ICF realized it too, like, yeah, we need to do something bigger than just these small plays that let this trauma continue to fester. So it's like it's time to move past it all now. There's new leadership in place for the first time, and we can all rally and get behind it and move forward. So it's the most exciting time to be in Cosmos for sure.
Speaks waves to the approach as well. It's no surprise that it's now you see folks deeply embedded in the community, interacting everywhere and just supporting. It comes and it should ripple from the center of the ICF and the hub as well. So the same standards that we'll be setting and the culture that we'll be setting at least internally, you know, has to be able to be a source of impact for the community and at least be a general example. And that's why the detachment, again, doesn't stop with the tech. It means that we have to be there to help with the success of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I'll also say I'm just very grateful for Barry and Mac to kind of also step up and take on that challenge, right? Because I think it's also very tough kind of challenge to take on. But I think just from the feedback on this initial announcement, it's just been overwhelmingly positive. And like we talked about earlier, right? Just like getting Smokey and Zani and like all these people that previously kind of distanced themselves are now reunited, seemingly is very good. And yeah, I've also always tried to kind of facilitate some of these conversations that eventually might have ended up into some sort of therapy sessions. But yeah, moving forward, you know, you're all always welcome here. We can have these conversations about content, agendas, roadmaps, everything that's coming, hub related, Cosmos related, vibes related, and just to make Cosmos also fun again. With that, we have a bunch of call to actions. I'll just share that briefly, and then I would love to hear just maybe Q1 kind of roadmap and next action steps. But on Tuesday, there is an X Spaces, as well as Wednesday and Thursday, same time, 3 p.m. UTC. So same time like this stream today. This is going to be on the Cosmos X account. Also, call to action, hiring talent. You guys are hiring a lot of people on interchain.io under careers. I think it's a lot of like technical jobs, but also non-technical in the growth and marketing field. And yeah,
you can find it's interchain.io/careers, and Tuesday we'll be chatting about the hub, so extending a lot of the conversations we had today. Wednesday is specifically on the stack to do the same, just deep dive. We're going to wrap it Thursday with community and growth so that we cover all pillars.
Yeah, and maybe some final kind of takes. Barry, Mac, I guess mostly for you, what's kind of the next couple of months going to be like in terms of priorities and action steps?
Yeah, we got a lot. And I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of it today. Well, there's some things we want to do with the stack, right? And most of it, I will say, is building out those teams. We have a couple folks who have moved into those teams internally from the Skip side. We want to definitely find really smart, really interested engineers who want to work on, decentralized technology. So just a shout out to everyone watching. If you know your smart engineer friend, or if you're that person, please do refer them our way. We are absolutely looking to expand the team. For the hub, as I said before, I think there's a bunch of quick wins and changing of some of the general structure around hub development that we can start to work on. So speeding up the iteration speed, speeding up the hub, speeding up generally just, the pace at which we can bring the hub back to parity with the rest of Cosmos in terms of its general versions of things and things like that, which are going to prepare us to have a very fast roadmap of product building in the future. I think the other thing that we're going to, basically start to set up and get ready for is a much larger governance proposal about our real vision for the hub on a multi-year timeframe, and ask for the community's buy-in to give us the permission to do that. So that's going to be something that obviously we'll be talking to the community about. I think it's going to be very exciting that we're going to put all of our efforts into making sure is something that is incredible and that we'll be very excited to share. Barry, should I pass it off to you for any other things?
Yeah. I think, as Mag said, the main thing really for the next couple of months for us is building the team, right? We have a huge amount of work to do here, and I've said it a couple of times, but we think that this is incredibly urgent. We think that the next wave of the internet, a more open, more fair internet, is going to be built in the next couple of years when these massive financial companies, health companies, and other folks come on chain, and as DeFi and as self-sovereignty over data and self-sovereignty over money becomes more important to folks, after we're starting to see things like Bitcoin going a little bit more mainstream, it's going to happen in the next couple of years. Like, the next couple of years are incredibly crucial, and nobody is set up for this right now. We're not set up for this. Ethereum's not set up for this. Solana's not set up for this. Like, we're not internet scale, and we're not ready. Like, the tech is not scalable. The UX is still shit. The developer experience is incredibly complicated, and the ideas are foreign to people. Like, we need to get there. And we have a huge head start in Cosmos, but we have to speed up, and we need to build a team. So if that's something that sounds exciting to you, being a part of that and being a part of the place that's doing that, starting with the end state, which is where we're starting, versus starting with some, alignment thing that other ecosystems are starting with. We really need you. So that's my message. Join up. We have a huge amount of work to do, and we're incredibly pumped about it. So,
just very last thing, if you're a community member, I need your help too. Like, let's grow this community again, right? Talk to your friends, talk to people, outside the ecosystem. Tell them about the fact that we have a vision for a decentralized web that is valuable and real, right? That they can start joining into, and be positive with that, right? Tell them about the great things that we have built, right? Tell them about the changes that we're already making. Tell them about, generally what brought you into Cosmos in the first place. That's all that stuff is going to be extremely helpful.
Yeah, long live Cosmos, long live the Interchain. I think I definitely feel like a lot more positive vibes and directions, also like from you guys now, being the new kind of faces and leaders, also to the community. Very, very good to hear. I really appreciate everyone's time, also in the chat. We didn't really get to answer like questions directly, but maybe we can do this sometime in Q1 again. I don't know, Nico, do you have any final words?
I think, as Max said, 2025 is the technology that needs to grow, the community needs to grow, and together as an ecosystem, we have to build those spaces that people want to populate as members of the community, spaces where we can jam on technology and innovate, and hit us up. We'll be looking for those spaces and building them in community, both, of course, at the ICF and the different teams here, but also we want to see these spaces flourish in the community again. These individual groups and hubs that shape different stories, different areas of focus, whether it's NFTs, DeFi, and so on, they have to flourish. We want them to flourish. We'll help them flourish, and we'll be there for them. So we're at arm's reach away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and everyone for your participation. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Here's to reunification.